It's not just Vault Day, today is Patch Day. 10.1.5 is finally going live, and there is tons happening. So I'm going to update you on everything you need to know with 10.1.5. But for now, servers are down. My name is Swag, and this is the Patch Day Update. Starting off, the new mega dungeon Dawn of the Infinite is here, and it is incredible. It is a 5-man mega dungeon. We've had those in the past, but this one's a little different. It's tougher, it's more difficult, and the rewards are even bigger. This feels more like a 5-man raid, and it seems like that's what Blizzard wants you to experience. I tested it out with some friends on the PTR a while back, and it took us nearly 3 hours to complete. However, Blizzard has buffed it since then, and it is now more difficult. So pull together some friends and try it out. Some things to keep in mind with the new mega dungeon. There are some achievements you can get. One for completing the dungeon, and then another for completing it with no deaths. Both will reward titles, but the latter will also give you an awesome transmog. So I know I'm working for it. Give it a shot, see if you can get it too. There's also some unique gear drops in the dungeon as well. We're even seeing Spirit come back as a special stat on items, and some other unique stats too that we've never seen before. The final boss also drops infinite dragon recolors for your dragon riding mounts, so try to collect them all. It's gonna take a few kills to get them. And speaking of mounts, there's also a drop in the dungeon. It's an item that turns itself into another mount. Now it's unclear of which mounts exactly it can become, but we've tested it out, and it seems to be a lot of different mounts that come from dungeons. So see what you get, maybe even raid mounts. In addition to the mega dungeon, there's also a time-themed world event going on and quest line. So you can head over towards Thaldraszus to check that out. But the Time Rifts event lets you experience different Azeroths and what could have been if things had potentially been different. We've been waiting a while for it, but it's finally here. The Evoker 3rd spec, Augmentation, has arrived. And this is a spec unlike anything we've ever seen in the game before. It is our first official support spec, and people are excited to try it out. I know a lot of people are nervous, but you just have to trust that Blizzard is going to find a way to make it bounce and make it good. And if they can, this just opens the door to even more specs, more options, and more gameplay potential. Warlocks are now available for all races. Admittedly, I'm not sure if Lightforged Draenei still makes sense to me. I know they changed the lore a little bit, but I don't know. However, I will be the first to admit that the new Warlock pet options are amazing. So you definitely check out a barbershop to see some of the customization that you now have available. You can now trade gold and items cross realms. So if you have an alt on one server and you want to send some gold over to another server, you can totally do that without having to buy a server change or some weird workaround. It's part of Blizzard working to try and unify the economy across all the servers. Continuing to make our lives easier, Blizzard has removed almost all the requirements for allied races. Now, once you hit level 40 on a character, you can head to your faction's emissary and you can pick up the quest to unlock those allied races, rather than having to go through all the procedures and all the quest lines just to even have the opportunity to unlock those quests. So if you haven't before, you can knock that out quickly now. Speaking of easier unlocks, riding skills now unlock at the appropriate level automatically. So if you're level 30 and you want to get flying, you now have flying without having to head back to your faction's capital city. And on top of that, you're also going to get an appropriate flying mount automatically in your bags at that level. So if you're questing, you don't have to stop and head back. You're going to have everything you need and the ability to fly that you want to keep on leveling and level even faster. You can now access NAXXRAMAS' Tier 3 transmogs. If I recall correctly, this has been removed from the game ever since the start of Wrath of the Lich King. So kind of a big deal that this has been items and appearances in the game that players have wanted and cannot get, and finally Blizzard is adding them back in. A note for my crafters who watch: a lot of those transmog appearances require old crafting items in order to create, so it might be worthwhile to stock up and throw them on the auction house. Speaking of transmog, you can now convert Shadowlands and Season 1 Dragonflight items into their appropriate tier appearances using the catalyst. It will cost you nothing, I believe. I could be wrong on that, but it should cost you nothing, and you can just convert them over in order to collect those appearances. Blizzard has talked about it in the past, and it wasn't actually available. Now it is. And lastly, in Transmog news, and I can't believe we have this much specifically just on Transmog, but Siege of Orgrimmar now has a skip right to the end. So if you want to collect those shoulders, because they are some good looking shoulders, you can do so a little bit more easily. It's still like a 0.02% drop chance, but it's a faster 0.02% drop chance. You may have noticed that your Dalaran and Garrison Hearthstones are both missing. If you take a look in the toy tab in the collections window, you can find them there. And lastly, with 10.1.5 here, we are seeing some major class changes. Mages overall are getting a huge rework, especially Rune of Power is going away, so you're no longer going to be stuck in one spot for 12 seconds straight. And on top of that, Fire is also getting some tweaking as well, and some major changes happening. Holy Paladin is getting a pretty heavy spec rework, and it's already top tier for Mythics, and so I'm excited to see how Holy Paladin ends up after this rework. I might have to start playing mine. Priests are getting a little bit of reworking to their talent tree, and then Shadow Priests on top of that are seeing even more. Finally, Warlocks aren't just having their appearances changed, but also their abilities. There's some reworking happening, especially within Demonology, to try and smooth out those peaks in their damage. And that's everything happening in the world of Warcraft this week. If this is your first time watching, make sure you hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with what's happening on my channel. My name is Swag, and thank you for letting me be your guide to the world of Warcraft.